Yes, you're good.
All right. Welcome. Welcome and good evening. Thank you for attending tonight's program to hear about the exciting summer the Ferguson Library is planning for you. Since March 13th, the library's been closed due to the COVID-19 virus. And we were able, within 1 week, to put all of our services online and be able to provide you remote services. I can't tell you what a major task that was and how proud I am of the work the staff has been doing. And this work has included things like working with the Stanford Public Education Foundation to distribute books at the grab and go sites, as well as expanding our digital archives to capture this unique experience, this unique moment in time. Yet even as we have held our story times and our tech classes, we've also been developing plans for reopening, because that's what a library does. It's open to the community. We haven't done this in a vacuum. We've relied heavily on the Connecticut's Division of Library Development, which has developed guidelines for public libraries so we can figure out the best protocols for reopening. We've also relied heavily on the American Library Association and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Based on the best research that recommends quarantining books and DVDs for 3 days, we decided to quarantine them for 5 days, just in case. So when you return your material, and it's now okay to return material, when you return your material, it will not be eliminated from your record for 5 days. But don't worry, we won't charge you a late fee, as we can backdate the items to the day it was returned. With me tonight, I have some people from the library's leadership team who will tell you about this summer. Let me introduce you to Elizabeth Joseph, Associate Director of Community Engagement, Alex Lee, Supervisor of Borough Services, and Elizabeth McKay, Supervisor of Youth Services. During the course of our discussion, please send your questions to chat. One of the first things that happened is we had to get used to working from home. So I'm going to ask Alice Lee why we were closed. How did we help people get things like a library card, or what were some of your most common questions?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Of course, if you want to enjoy all these wonderful services, you need to get the library card. We set it up. It's very easy to apply. When you go to our webpage, usually you will see the link, need a library card. Just click on it. You can go to the form and fill it up. If you don't see that, just look for borrower services, click on it, and you can also apply online. We lift most of the requirements, so it's very easy to get a card, and we will send a number to you. But this is just a temporary card. It's so if you need to get a physical card, you do need to be in person in the library with accountable ID when we reopen. And some patrons, they might have a card that's already expired. So don't worry, you can click on the contact button on our webpage and send us your information. We will update your card and contact you as soon as possible. People are kind of concerned about the due dates and fines, but we mark everything check out to the end of June. We might extend it if necessary. And like Alice said before, don't worry about the fines. When we receive your item after the quarantine period, we will waive the fines or backdate it so you won't be charged. Handling of library materials, we've been quarantine for 5 days. And when we deal with it, the staff will wear the face masks and with gloves. And we also been sending out reserve by mail. So, and I think Alice will talk about later, we will expand it to the curbside picked up. So we are expanding our service, don't worry.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
Elizabeth, what was it like for your staff to work remotely, and what new initiatives did you start?
Well, Alice, I think that we knew that the pandemic was going to create quite a havoc on our workflow and public service. So we jumped really quickly into something that we call chat reference. It's a chat line where you have real-time answers to your questions, and we've staffed it from Monday through from 10 to 5. So it's really similar to going to a physical information services desk, except all of this happens online. That is one of the first things that we instituted. We also started a lot of our programs and brought them to the virtual world. Our book discussions, we started our tech classes, and we use U2 Live as our platform. And once those classes were completed, they are now living on our Ferguson Library YouTube channel. As you know, we have a very strong entrepreneurship and startup program at the library, and we have a service called Entrepreneur in Residence Service. So because there was so much sort of fragmentation of that, what we did is we took that program and we called it Conversations with the EIR, where local small businesses and startups met with the EIR in a roundtable discussion. We also offered ebook recommendations. So for those people who are interested in getting recommendations from our librarians, we started a service based on that. We also launched something really interesting. It's called Small Scale Development, where local people, just everyday average people come together to work on projects that could lead to a better, more vibrant community. And so that was another program that we started. And hopefully as we come out of our shelves and out of quarantine, we'll see what those projects will look like. The other things that we've done is also start a poetry blog. It was right in time for April's Poetry Month. And then the Maker blog, which is really a huge part of what we do in terms of library services. So the Maker blog really offers like all kinds of great tutorials on, sewing your mask and all of that kind of great stuff. But in addition to all of this, we also partnered with SPEF on something called Homework Helpers, where we got in touch with parents who are looking for some tutoring services for their children, and worked with SPEF on getting what their needs are and, and matching them to a tutor. We also volunteered for the senior hotline with the city, as well as the volunteer hotline. So what we couldn't do as sort of library workers, we did as community workers. Next slide, please. One of the most, I think, important projects of this period is what we call Share Your Quarantine Story. So as Stanford's repository, we're collecting stories having to do with people's experiences in terms of the quarantine and the pandemic. So we're asking people to share your story, your journal entry, your poem, an audio, video, anything having to do with what the pandemic and the quarantine has been for you. So we're asking you to submit all of that content, and we really want to make sure that it's there for future generations. So as now that we're reading stories about the Spanish flu 100 years from now, we want to make sure that people know what our community went through during this coronavirus quarantine period. Next slide, please. I also wanted to point out that we have a Facing Racism webpage, which lists a lot of library curated content, books, articles, national and local resources. As we watch our country grapple with some major moral crisis, we really want to be at the forefront of that education and that engagement so that you can be part of the change and be part of a reawakening and bringing about social justice. So those are some of the things that we've been working on. I also wanted to add that we are going to be launching a community-wide discussion on race and equity. Unfortunately, it's not going to be live, it's going to be over Zoom, and please join us for that. We'll have some more information in our newsletters coming up. But I'm also going to share my email address at the end of this. If you're interested in hearing about that or participating in that conversation, please send me an email. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Hey, thank you, Elizabeth, especially for the update on your work you've been doing with Everyday Democracy. I know during this time, it's been very unsettling, and that we do have rich resources. I'm going to ask Liz to talk about what it was like in the Youth Services Department.
Good evening, everyone. Well, it took a little bit of getting used to doing youth services work from home. Some things were a little bit easier to adapt than others. Most school-age kids are using Zoom or some other meeting apps to communicate with school. So we came up with some fun things to do, like our after-dinner trivia programs, book discussions, fact or fiction programs. Most recently, we did aliens. We've done a little bit exploring the options available to us on social media. We did a series of longer read alouds for older kids on Instagram that culminated in a discussion. We struggled for a little bit to figure out the best way to engage our youngest users, the storytime attendees, because for them, the personal face-to-face experience is really most paramount. And they're not likely to sit still for a Zoom program. But we started by recording and posting on Instagram and on the library's webpage some of our favorite storytime songs and rhymes, just one at a time. So in a 1-minute bite, you could sing a song or do a rhyme. And then we expanded into reading books, maybe just one book at a time. And then finally, we started doing some abbreviated story times for babies and for older kids, family story times. And still keeping in mind the short attention spans, but since they live online, they can be accessed and paused and revisited when everybody's ready to, and more in the mood. We also started doing a series of home scavenger hunts where we will post a list on our Instagram page at the beginning of the week and invite families to send us things or post things that they found and tag us on Instagram. And even if families don't tag us, I hope that they're able to use these hunts as something fun to do to get out of the house and have it be a fun distraction.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth, or Liz. So people have been asking about protocols and when the library is going to be opening up in chat. And I just want to, I mentioned this at the beginning of the program, but I can't mention it enough. The first thing is any item that is returned at this point is being quarantined for 5 days, and staff are using masks and gloves when they handle any of this material, even after the 5 days. That may change, it may become shorter. The Institute of Museum of Library Science is doing a study to determine the correct number of days, but we know from a New England Journal of Medicine article that 72 hours are safe. So that's why we're going with a couple of extra days. The other thing that we are following very closely is the Division of Library Development Roadmap for Reopening. It has very strict protocols in it, and it will probably be adopted by the Governor Lamont's team for reopening the library. I am on that committee that is working with their team to talk about proper protocols. One of the things that we can't do is open up until at least June 20th because we are a phase 2 reopening, and we can't hold story times or big programs until at least July 20th because that's a phase 3. But what I will say is that there are some things that we have been doing. Alex talked about the mailing out of books. We've been doing that all along. And this most exciting thing is that we're going to talk about, will start Monday, June 8th at the main library, and it'll roll out to the branches shortly after this. One of the reasons why we're moving towards this route is because mailing books is not sustainable in the long term, and it's slow and cumbersome. And for many people, it's just easier to get into the car like you would at Best Buy and do curbside pickup. So Elizabeth, can you talk a little bit about curbside pickup and what it's going to look like?
We're really excited about both these services, which are launching at the main library next week. So curbside pickup is for those people who drive to the main library. So what's going to happen is you are going to place holds on the titles that you want. A notification is going to come to you, and you're going to select a method of pickup. So whether it's curbside, which requires you driving in your car, coming to the main library, or walking if you are living in the downtown area. So select one of those methods, make an appointment. The appointments are between 10 and 3. Once you get to our location, you will have a notification that tells you where exactly to come. And once you get to that location, if you're in a car, you're going to pop your trunk. We're going to drop the materials that you've checked out into the trunk. And if you're walking up to the building, then all the materials are going to be packaged in a brown paper bag, and you will pick it up. For those of you who have no inkling on what to read next, again, we offer something called Get Book Recommendations from our staff. So there's a form that you fill out. It's been actually included in several of our weekly emails, I think, going back to April. So that's another service that we offer for those people who don't really necessarily know exactly which title you want to read. Yeah, so next week, June 8th, main library, the following week, June 15th at Harry Bennett, and then June 22nd, those services will be available at both South End and Weed.
And part of the reason for the delay in rolling them out all at once is that this is the first time we're working in a pandemic. And so we're not quite sure how long staff are going to be comfortable wearing a mask and needing to take a break. We need to work out some of those protocols. We do know that staff upon entering will be wearing masks, and when they're dealing with materials, they will be wearing gloves. So that is one of the reasons for the delay in the rollout, and each place will work a little bit differently just because they're physically different. But Liz, I just can't imagine if you're a parent of a young reader who's reading 20, 30 books in a week, how are you going to be able to help them?
So that's a good question. It's sometimes hard for parents because they like to browse to look through the shelves and see what we have. And if you've got little kids who read, 3 or 4 books at bedtime every night, and you're used to coming in and taking out a big stack of books, or if you've got a new reader who's going through beginning readers very quickly, or kind of beyond the beginning reader and starting to look for harder things, but not everything is at their level. I understand how that could be a little bit daunting to have to look through the catalog and find what you're looking for. As Elizabeth mentioned, there is a form that some people have actually already taken advantage of for their children, looking for books on, a different reading level for their 5th grader and their 3rd grader. They like to read fantasy, or they like to read, different series books. And we do see those, and we've contacted people by email to sort of go get a little more information. But now that we're going to be in the building, please feel free to call us. The youth services desk will have somebody, answering the phones during the day. And And you can always call and have like a little more of an in-depth reader's advisory conversation so you can get exactly what you need. If there's any teachers in this group, we've been doing teacher units for teachers for years and years, where a teacher will call and say, I'd like to get, you know, a selection of books, maybe 10 books on whatever the theme is that they're studying, you know, spring or something like that. And in these times, we'd like to open that up to parents too. So, you know, if you want to stock up so you don't have to come to the library every couple of days and get a good stack of things, we can work with you to help you find some things that you and your kids will like.
Thank you. Thank you. Liz, I'm going to keep you talking for a couple more minutes and have you talk about the Summer Reading Club and what's different about it this year, what's special about it.
So the Summer Reading Club, luckily for us, pre-pandemic, we had been doing Summer Reading Club online for the last several years. So we do have a template in place for that. We will be doing that again. For anybody who's participated in the past, it will be very similar. Kids or their parents can sign up online beginning next Friday, June 12th. Traditionally, and this hasn't really changed, kids and teens can read whatever they like, and then they record online in our summer reading database. It's called Read Squared. What they've been reading along with how long they spent reading it. So if a child is reading a very long chapter book that they could never finish in one sitting, but they want to make sure they keep track, they can say, you know, I spent an hour reading this book, and then record it again another hour the next day. I read this book for another hour. That part is the same, and that's how it's kind of always been. But this year, we've added what we're calling a mission component to the program, which can be done instead of or in addition to the traditional reading. So we have these missions or challenges that fall loosely into categories of STEM, interacting with people, books, and just for fun. And they might be crafting something, it might be learning a new skill or teaching a skill to someone, writing a letter, visiting a park, helping around the house, and of course, reading books or listening to books for the young ones is still part of it. There are a lot of choices. We're trying to be as flexible as possible because we recognize that, first of all, not everyone might be comfortable reading ebooks, or they might not find the sorts of ebooks for their age level, for the kids anyway, that they want, or it might be a hardship for them to get to the library, to replenish their book stock over and over again. So we hope that this will make it a little more flexible. We're also going to have a paper reading log that we will hopefully have available at some of the curbside times, and that will be downloadable on our website. And that will also help for families that are worried about limiting their children's screen time, which at this point, I think a lot of people have pretty much blown through their screen time limits between school and all the other things. But if you're trying to be consistent about limiting that, this will make it another option for you.
And we've also always had an adult summer reading club. Elizabeth, what's going on there?
Right, so for the adult summer reading club, we are going to do some reading challenges. One is going to focus on self-care because we all need it at this point. I think we're all overdue for that. The other one is armchair travel because I think travel is probably going to be out of bounds for the summer for many of us. We are also hosting Kristen Higgins on June 15th, a big name author. It's going to be a great program. We are going to be doing some arts and crafts using household items so you don't have to run to Michael's or another craft store to get what you need. We are also going to be doing some staff-led book discussions and book talks. So a lot of kind of like homemade programs that require some creativity and imagination at our end as well. So really looking forward to everyone participating and being part of like some homegrown things as opposed to getting outside programmers or performers.
Wow, this is exciting. And what's even more exciting, I just got a message from Bob Lyon wanting to know if we could send them this recording for public access TV. And the answer, of course, is yes. This is really great, but I know that most people just want to come back into the library. They want to, we also know during the summertime, it might be better if the library comes to you. So we are working on plans for neighborhood delivery, possibly using the bookmobile or our delivery van. And we even have a grant for the bookmobile to be in the parks on the weekend. So we'll be working on those plans. But in order to come into your favorite neighborhood library, we need to make sure that both our users and our staff are safe, which means putting together some new protocols. And we're in the middle of doing that right now. New cleaning protocols, new disinfecting protocols. But Elizabeth, when people start coming into the library, how will the experience be different?
Well, I think I want to sort of correct myself on the Kristen Higgins date first. It's not June 15th, it's June 18th, and registration information is going to go out soon. You know, we are really anxious and excited about opening up, but we want to make sure that before we do, we have certain things in place. But when we do start to have that rephased reopening, you're going to see some changes, particularly in terms of like the number of people that are going to be in our buildings. We are thinking about how long you can be there because, I mean, you know, it's a summer, it's hot, and sometimes it's a great place to hang out, and we might have to restrict how long you can be there. The staff is going to be very strict about our own PPE. It's wearing masks, wearing gloves, all that kind of stuff. We are going to ask that of all our patrons that come into our buildings. You are going to see sneeze guards at a lot of our public service desks, whether it's circulation or information desks, just like you see at the supermarket and the stores. And 6 feet distance, I guess that's going to be ingrained even in our own public culture at the library. So yeah, whatever all the retail experiences, all of that is going to be coming into our own buildings.
Sorry about that. I had trouble hitting the unmute button. Liz, what is it going to be like for families who used to, you know, sit in the youth services area for hours reading material?
Yeah. Well, as Elizabeth mentioned, things are going to be a little bit different in the youth services department, at least at first, particularly around how many people are going to be allowed in the building. I think the biggest thing, unfortunately, is going to be that we won't, for a little while, be able to have, you know, the same kind of atmosphere of everyone coming in to sit at a table and play a game or hang out with their friends or use the computers or just sit and read because of the numbers of people that we can allow in the building. So we won't be able to browse the shelves. We're going to have to put a hold on spending time on the room to do all of the things that we like, you know, just hanging out. But even though the browsing and that part of it will be on hold, as I mentioned before, the stacks will be open for us to at least get what you're looking for. So if you see something that you want in Amazon or in a bookstore, or you read an article about it and you want us to see if we have it, definitely call us. Place a hold if it's something we already have. If not, definitely call us or email us to see if we can have a conversation with you, because we want to have it be as almost normal as possible.
I want to thank you. And Mason, I believe that's the end of the PowerPoint, correct? Oh yeah, it said the contact information.
Mhm.
Please jot it down, but if you don't have a chance to jot it down, please put it, check our website. All of our contact information is on our website. So just a short recap. You can return materials now and any one of our facilities. They will be quarantined for 5 days, so they will not be off your record, but we will backdate it. We are not charging fines at this point, and we won't until a while. We need people to keep on bringing the material back and do it when they're feeling safe. We will continue to do our mail program, but we're thinking that fewer people will probably want to take advantage of it. And as of Monday, there'll be curbside pickup at the main library, followed by curbside pickup on June 15th at the Harry Bennett branch and June 22nd at Weed and South End. Interlibrary loan, I'm going to ask Alex about that. Is interlibrary loan ready to be up and running?
Actually, Stephanie's been working on it, but it depends on the lending library. If they are willing to send the material, we will do it. But mostly we are working on the electronic materials. So if they can send us those links and whatever, then we can have access to those materials.
So the other thing that somebody, I'm just stick with you for it, Alex, for a moment, because I know you mentioned this at the beginning. What if somebody's library card expired last November? Because we've been renewing the most recent ones.
Yeah, that's fine. Just send us your information through the contact button. We will update your card or reissue a number if necessary. So it's not a problem.
The one
then,
thing go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, again, this is temporary. So when the library reopen, you do need to be in person in the library and have accountable ID, then we can update your card to the regular expiration date.
So one of my good friends happened to mention the Friends Bookshop and what's going on there. When we reopen to the public, the Friends Bookshop will reopen to the public. But for right now, please do not give us your donated books. We'll be anxious to take them in a few months, but we really need to figure out a sorting system for that so that they can be quarantined as well. So please keep that in mind. I'm going to ask Liz, Elizabeth, Alex, did I miss anything?
I think I missed one more thing. If you forgot your password, you can always send us your request and we will reset your password, your PIN number. So you can continue to use our online materials.
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to add that we've been buying all of the new upcoming summer releases and blockbusters. So yes, please check out our catalog and look for like the latest Patterson and all these wonderful books are coming out and all of them are going to be available as they're available. So yeah. And
I'm just going to repeat, we can return materials at any one of the branches, but Elizabeth and Liz, that was a great segue because someone asked, are we going to still put a lot of emphasis on electronic materials, the ebooks and the e-audios moving forward, especially for the young kids as it helps them when they're quarantined?
I can say that since we've been close to the public, we have been buying almost exclusively ebooks and e-audiobooks, and we've been trying to highlight those. We have some book lists on our website. We have put some posts up of our favorites on our Instagram page. We have about a week or so ago, we did a book discussion was just more of a book conversation. We didn't all talk about the same book, but I highlighted some of the books that we're available on our different e-platforms. We've also, for the summer reading list that goes out with the to the schools for K-8, we have been bulking up our e-holdings on that as well, so that there was a lot of choices of books that people could get digitally there. So we've been concentrating hard on really making sure there are lots of e-book and e-audio choices. And with the 3 different platforms, Simply E, Hoopla, and Overdrive, there's so much to choose from. There's a lot of great things.
Alice, I would just like to add, like, while we were in quarantine, our emphasis is really on digital materials, but I think as we're thinking about coming out of quarantine and reopening, we've kind of really shifted our focus to physical materials. I mean, just anecdotally, I think all the new materials have been coming in and that have been processed, we're already seeing reserves on them. And as soon as they come in and they're processed, they're going out to patrons. So I think we're going to see some shifts here in terms of our collection development and our purchases in terms of materials.
That's fantastic news, and I will say that we did do a survey while we were closed, and one of the things that people said they really wanted was books, and we did that as we are getting ready to plan our operating budget for next year, knowing that we may need to trim our hours some, and we really wanted to hear that feedback. Our hours won't be settled for a little bit because we're working on a new service model. Because of the pandemic, and we need to figure out the workflow around that. I heard Mark Jaffe from the Children's Learning Center say today that putting together the reopening plan is like putting together a jigsaw puzzle with missing half the pieces. And that's a little bit what this is like. This is our first pandemic, and we want to go make sure that as we reopen safely. So while our target is June 20th for the main library to be followed by the branches, we really need to make sure that we have all our protocols in place and that we have all our cleaning protocols in place, and we have enough supplies of cleaners, disinfectants, Purell, you name it, so that when you come in, you're feeling safe and our staff is safe. With that, I don't see any more questions.
Sorry, I think there's a question about returns when people use either the curbside or the walk-up pickup. You unfortunately will not be able to return your materials during that transfer. We are asking you to return all items to book drop. So unfortunately, we can't pick up your materials when we're doing curbside or walk-up.
Oh, Elizabeth, I'm glad you caught that question because that's real important. We're going to really direct everybody to the book drop so we can continue the quarantine. All right. I think that is every. Bob Lyon's so funny. He said first pandemic, but it's our first pandemic since 1918 that we've been dealing with this. So that was my thought. Have a great evening, everyone. And if you have any questions, if we missed something.
We have one more question.
One more question. Yes, do people return interlibrary loan books? Yes, you can, and you can put them in the book drop. I know we tell you never to do that, but we're breaking all rules this year. So please return the interlibrary loan in the book drop. All right. And now I'm getting, I just want to make sure. All right, and we're getting a lot of kudos in the chat. So just so the staff that are online, that they should hear that. Thank you very much. As we mentioned, this is, has been recorded. You know, what we can do now as the crowd is thinning, we can just de-share the screen, and maybe from there we can see who's out there and open it up a little bit. David Michelle just asked how he can help me with anything. Well, what he doesn't know is he was a huge help. Both him and Caroline Simmons, when I went out to him and said we needed help with the state looking out for public libraries, he did exactly that. So thank you.
Pleasure, Alice. Thank you for all you guys do. We have you guys are like a jewel in town, so.
Oh, thank you.
I hope everybody is well. Thank you.
It's nice to see everyone.
It is so nice to see